All righty. Welcome. You made it here. Yay. I made it here. Yay. I don't know if any of you have ever run an event like this in person or online. It is quite the endeavor. And I can't tell you just how excited I am to have you all here with me to celebrate the launch of this week's amazing talks from the speakers that we have lined up for you. And just so excited and so grateful to have you here. It's so much more fun with people who can come and play with me. So thanks for coming to play with me. Thanks for kicking it off. Thanks for saying yes to joining me this morning and being a part of this celebration of women's voices, celebration of the divine feminine in business and the sacred rebel. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've got in store. So I'm going to give you the official introduction for our event, right, as we kick things off here. So you are here at the Power Archetypes for High Vibe Women in Business Global Online Conference. And it is evidenced by our chat box and all of the people who are joining us today from all over the world. It is truly a global community that we've created here. And I want to honor you and thank you for being a part of this. You know, this isn't just a spectator sport. We want you to join in and participate and share what you got out of this experience and share with our speakers, you know, the ahas that you get so they know the impact that you've made on that they've made on your lives. And I'm sure it's going to make an impact on their lives to be able to hear from you and to know what resonated for you. And we've got a lovely way for you to do that in our Facebook group, which is the Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries Facebook group. So it is a group, not a page. So just, if you want to, just go ahead and right now go search for Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries in Facebook and join the group. We don't have all of our speakers in there, but we do have several, and you'll see, you know, images of all of them as they join the group, and you can communicate with them there. And then, of course, you know, go follow these people as you find new things about them. Follow them on Facebook. Share your feedback with them. Let them know that you love their talk, that what you got out of it. Of course, reach out to them directly too if you feel moved to do so. We want this to be an interactive experience. We want everyone to form a community here, and that's the reason that I'm getting everyone to go over to the Facebook group so that you can all connect with each other more easily as well. And so, you know, what's the purpose of this group? You know, what's the purpose of this event? Well, this is my intention, is that we're coming together to raise power, shift paradigms, and forge pathways for world revolution through the divine feminine and the powerful archetype of the sacred rebel. And when I talk about revolution, and when I write it out, I put, you know, I mean, I'm not the first person to do this, but revolution with a capital E for evolution, because I believe our personal evolution is the revolution. It comes from inside of us, and we evolve for ourselves and have an impact on the world around us. So thank you for saying yes to being part of this experience and seeing how our speakers and the people in this community can help you evolve to your next level, and to invite in the things that you desire next, because you are a co-creator on this planet. You are creating new ways of thinking and doing things, and together we are elevating the frequency of love on the planet just by gathering here together today. So thank you for being a part of that. So during this week, we're going to interview several incredible high vibe female entrepreneurs and creators who are modeling powerful archetypes. They're claiming their own unique pathways to success and modeling the leading edge as soulful feminine leaders, paving the way for others to thrive and live fully expressed. And I haven't officially introduced myself yet. You've probably seen me in emails aplenty already. My name is Theresa Pridemore, and I'm the owner of Sovereign Spirit. I call myself many things. I'm a queen of misfits. I am a high priestess of business. I support other people, in especially practitioners and healers and light workers, in stepping out for powerful visibility so that they can expand their income, but also get their message out into the world, most importantly, and step out as thought leaders. And I do this all through the work of archetypes. And so that geekery, my geeking out on archetypes, is in wanting to do this in a container like this and play with other people through the conduit of archetypes, and of course, many, many other things that we're going to explore over this week, was the reason I brought this together. It just is something that I'm passionate about, and I know many other people are, and you're going to hear so many incredible things about different archetypes, including the Sacred Rebel, that you can tap into over the course of this week. So just a little bit of housekeeping. As we said before, please participate in the chat box and talk to each other. If something comes out for you, please share it. Cornelia says, I'm new to you, but you had me at archetypes. That's right. I love working with archetypes. So one thing, I'm just going to call this out just so that you're not surprised. Okay, this is the Sacred Rebel Summit. There will be F-bombs. There will be a little bit of language. You know, it's not over the top, but we have a bunch of sacred rebels on this conference. And this conference is all about keeping it real. We try to keep it real. We try to just be authentic. Everyone I've invited here is a super authentic person. And not everyone is a sailor like I am. I can sometimes drop the F-bombs. But I just want to warn you so you're not surprised. And if you are watching some of these in a work environment or a coffee shop and it wouldn't be appropriate for other people to hear this language, or you have kids, just put on your headphones. And then we're all adults here, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, I know that you can handle it. It's not anything you've never heard before. It's not over the top, but just be ready for it. That's all I want to say about that. Hi, Pam. So that's one thing I just wanted to call out. And, you know, there's a little something here for everybody. And we have, you know, business owners, we have creators on this summit, coaches and healers, teachers. There's all kinds of wisdom that you're going to find here. And at all different, you know, kinds of levels of what's going to be helpful. Well, I should put it this way, wherever you are at in your business, whatever level you're at. Maybe you're just getting started. Maybe you're thinking about starting a business. Or maybe you've been running your business for a long time. You're going to find something that's going to resonate for you here. So I'm going to encourage you just to keep yourself tuned for what's going to be right for you. What's the thing that's going to really stand out for you? Listen to your intuition. You know, you can't always know, but we try to give you clues and hints, you know, for things that might tickle your fancy, okay? And my advice for you for the whole conference is decide what you want to get from this experience. Like, really get clear within yourself. What is it that you want to get out of this? What outcome would you like? What piece of wisdom are you calling out to Spirit to give you to help you take your next steps? Just say it out loud or be intentional about it in some way, and then set yourself up to get it. You know, making time for an experience like this is sometimes hard to do. You know, we sign up well-intentioned, we see something that excites us, and we get busy. And I want you to just really be clear what you want to get out of this. Maybe you do have limited time available this week. Then you need to be super laser focused about what you decide to watch. And I'm going to encourage everyone to go through our event schedule page, and everyone, all the links are constantly repeated in the emails on how to get there. So you should be able to get there anytime. Go to the event schedule page, see who you're interested in and what day they're on, and schedule it in. Put it in your calendar. Make sure you mark it out so that you know when to watch, because all of the talks are available for 48 hours and then they will go away. Now, if you are super busy and you know you have the best of intentions, you really want to see someone but you're not sure it's going to work out, just go ahead and buy the lifetime access pass. That is going to be at different price points throughout the week. Earlier in the week is the cheapest. Right now is the best price to get. So go ahead and sign up for that so that you get the best possible price if you know that you're just not going to have all the time you want. But, you know, having said that, they're all free. Just schedule it in and you will be able to take advantage of all the speakers you want to. Prioritize, figure out who you want to watch first, and then maybe, you know, throughout the day, fit in the extras and the bonuses if you have time. Okay, so that, I just wanted to call that out. And yes, someone here is saying, whenever you chat in the chat box, make sure you've got it set sending to all panelists and attendees so that you get your message out to everyone, unless you're intending to speak to someone specifically. Okay, so that's that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the rebel, and then we're going to do just a little grounding so that we all come into this container together. I'm a real big believer about being intentional about the container that we're creating on an energetic level. So we're going to do that in a moment. But one thing that I want to do is just quickly define rebel. Because so my talk today is how to, sorry, my brain just like went out the door. So it is to rock your weird or woo with the archetype of the sacred rebel. And the whole conference is built around the archetype of the sacred rebel. And this is really funny. Like, I had someone email me yesterday asking, like, how should I describe this to people, the sacred rebel thing? And I laughed because I hadn't included a definition of the sacred rebel in this talk. So I've got it now. Thank you, Spirit. I love it when that happens. Everything always happens in the right order. So, of course, you know, when we think of a rebel rises in opposition to the established order, right? That's what a rebel does. And there's a little bit of like a pushing against energy in that, right? Like pushing back against something. I get kind of tired when I hear that definition of rebel, actually. I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of time in my life pushing against things, and it ain't fun. And I can't tell you, like, I mean, I got some things done, but I feel like I get a lot more done when I'm not pushing against things. And we're going to talk about that today. But a sacred rebel pushes back, or not pushes back, but like goes against the established order from a stance of shining light on truth. She raises the frequency of those around her through her thoughts, words, and actions. So, you know, obviously thoughts aren't always enough, but thoughts are powerful. We are here to raise the frequency of those around us. Actually, we're here to raise our own frequency, but we get to influence others in the process of doing that. And a sacred rebel stands out for a sacred cause that is her soul's calling, you know, and that's always evolving. That's not stagnant. That's not something that was just like, here, we've assigned you your calling, here you go. The sacred calling is something that you've defined and actually created for yourself. I personally believe that you know, part of like when Abraham talks about the vortex, part of our vortex is something we created in other lifetimes, but it's still our choice. It never stopped being our choice. It was never something that was put upon us. And a sacred rebel, of course, as I've said before, does this first and foremost for personal enlightenment and growth. But also, she knows that she can be and wants to be a powerful and positive influence to others. And here's one component, and this of being a sacred rebel. So, well, specifically being a rebel, right? When you're a rebel, you might become an outcast sometimes, right? Being a rebel doesn't mean you always get accepted into the social group that you were born into. You know, you're a black sheep maybe, or you're bucking the status quo, and not everyone's okay with that. So the thing with the sacred rebel, she's learned not to be afraid of losing her status in what you might call the tribal order, right? You know, we by nature as humans are tribal, you know, and we have tribal inclinations. We want to stay a part of the tribe. We don't want to get exiled. We want to get kicked out. And the sacred rebel knows she has no choice but to listen to and live according to her own truths. Does that resonate? So I'm in an office building. You might be hearing other people outside. Does that resonate for you? Is that something that you feel defines you? I'm really just curious about that. Yeah. Hi, people who've joined us since. I'm like popping back over in the room and seeing we have a lot of new people. Yay. Yeah. Black sheep. Yep. I was always getting in trouble as a kid, you know, in the best possible way. But, you know, you just can't do anything but listen to your own truth. You just don't have a choice. It's an imperative. You've tried maybe you've tried to fit in. Maybe you tried it for a long time, you know. For me, it looked like, okay, let me do this 9-to-5 job thing for a long time. And that just didn't work for me. It wasn't because I was being difficult. It was just because that there was something else I knew I was meant to do, and I couldn't do it in that container, right? So yeah. And that's, you know, Deb, yeah, good kid growing up. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can both be a rebel and the good kid at the same time later. But, you know, as we get older, we get that imperative to accept our true self becomes so strong that we can't ignore it anymore. And it doesn't mean that we always know how to listen to it or how to apply that. Like, we know something isn't getting fulfilled, and we don't always know what to do with the information. Like, maybe you've gotten a big download one day, and then you're like, it feels so clear. I don't have words for it, but it feels so clear. And then the next day you go, I'm not clear. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know something's got to change, you know? So yeah. Okay, so let us take a moment, whether you identify fully with the sacred rebel archetype or not, maybe some piece of it connects with you. I suspect if you're in this room with me, you're one of my sacred rebel peeps. And it doesn't matter if you don't quite connect with that or not. I want us to connect with the deeper aspect of the sacred rebel, which is the person who comes into this life experience looking for their own personal enlightenment and growth. Like, that is paramount to you, and you want to shine light on your truth and the truth for others. Okay, so let's just take a moment. If you're not driving, if you're in a settled place where you can do this, I would love it if you would join me in just a little grounding and intention setting. So if you can close your eyes, I'm going to keep mine open for just a moment more, just to make sure I'm staying on task. Just close your eyes and come into your body and really come into the present moment. And just honor yourself for taking this time out, for being here today, for connecting with others through this container. You know, life moves pretty fast, and it sometimes feels like a lot to do something like this. And I want to honor you for doing it. And I want to thank you for doing it, because it's more fun for me that you're here. So let us take a moment to anchor into our shared intention to ripple this love and high frequency out into the world in whatever way is true for you, in your own unique way. You know, certainly we don't come, if we are identifying as a sacred rebel, we don't come to it from a place of just wanting to be ornery and be a pain in the butt for people. It comes from our higher selves. It comes from the deepest part of ourselves, when we know that there's a possibility for something different in the world, and that we can be responsible for and truthful to our own piece of that. We're not responsible for everyone, and that is something that it takes a long time sometimes to really let go of and surrender to, is that we really aren't responsible for all of it. We're just get to be responsible for the part we can manage. I just want you to take a deep breath if you have been putting a lot on yourself. If you've been expecting yourself to have an answer to all the world's problems, or feeling anxious about the conditions in the world that you feel powerless to help against, you know, that's another part of being a sacred rebel. It's you want to have a powerful impact. You want to believe that things can get better, and they certainly can. Let's take a deep breath, and when you breathe out, release your responsibility for things that you simply cannot control, that are not yours to carry. And you may not know what those things are that you need to release. Just trust your spirit, trust your higher self to help you know what to release, or just to release it in that breath with you. So let's take a deep breath. And release. Maybe do this a couple more times if you feel you need to. And say hello to your beautiful self, one who's showing up every day to do the things that matter to you. Say hello to yourself. Give yourself some love and appreciation for being willing to be true to yourself. With all the conditioning we receive in this world, with all the programming that's thrown at us, it takes a lot to really own and honor your truth. And I want you to give yourself some love for that. It's not selfish. I mean, it is, but not in a bad way. Being self-centered is being centered in yourself. It's okay for you to honor your truth. Everyone else will be okay. And you're doing your work that you're meant to do when you do that. And let's just take a moment to connect with each other. Just imagine all these incredible people now around the world gathered in this container, whether in this particular live call or watching the replay, or just anyone watching any of these incredible interviews this week. We're all in a container together. And just smile and think about these hundreds and hundreds of people out in the world with you that are also rippling their intention of love out into the world at your side. You're not alone. Being a sacred rebel can feel like lonely work, but you're actually not alone. We're all in this together. So just give a little energetic hello to all of our wonderful community, all the people in this container with us. And smile and know that you are in community and you are not alone in this work that you're doing. We might all have a different way that is right for us, and we're going to honor each other in our own way of bringing this light and love into the world. And then put a little bit of love out to those people as you receive the love that others are putting out there for you. And then come into the room and just open your eyes when you feel ready, and join us back here as we get going on the rest of our exciting talk and time together. Yay. I feel all grounded and good right now. I'm going to have a little sip of coffee before I keep going here. Thank you for doing that with me. If you were able to, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I just find that everything works better, it flows better when we take a moment to ground and connect with our body. You are welcome, Anya. Okay, so hello, hello. Now that we're all in our body and we're all fully present, let's get started. Let's get going with this talk. So first, before I jump into more about the Sacred Rebel and owning your weird and your woo, which I'm all about, and you're gonna find out all about that this week. You're gonna get to see all my weird and all my woo. Maybe all of it, but you're gonna see a lot of it. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the rebel specifically, just the rebel. You know, how did we become rebels in the first place? Well, part of it, right, as I spoke about earlier, is honoring our truth. You know, we were in an environment where someone was pushing their truth on us, or their idea of the truth, or their program that they received at birth that they never questioned maybe and just bought into, right? And we were instantly put off by that. You know, you remember being a kid, and kids know stuff, right? You remember being that kid who's thinking, what is wrong with all of these adults? Have they all gone crazy? Am I the only sane one in the room? Why are they telling me that I'm the one who doesn't know what's right, when clearly they all are a little cuckoo, right? So I know that I often felt like that kid. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. You know, my mother loved and adored me, but man, you know, there were there were things going on in our family, and that is too long of a story to share here. But basically, we become rebels because we're rebelling against someone or something, right? So when it comes to how that being a rebel applies to running your own business or running a spirit-led business, you know, there can be so many reasons that we come into this path. You know, maybe our parents told us that you need to go get a real job and I want you to be a doctor, or whatever that story is. And we're like, that's not for me. And maybe it took us, we had to do a lot of rebelling, even as adults, to kind of unplug from that expectation, that familial expectation, right? And of course, we grew up in a patriarchal culture that tells us all, you know, who we're supposed to be and, you know, everything about how we're supposed to behave, very controlling. And if you are a free thinker, oh, better watch out for this one, you know. Although I do personally believe that bit by bit, things are shifting, bit by bit, but it's happening. I'm an optimist, so I'm a very hopeful person. So, you know, you might be rebelling against the 9-to-5 corporate culture, and not to say that that doesn't work for some people. Like, it's not to demonize working at a corporation or working at a company, but you may be like me, one of those people for whom that just did not work, right? And then of course we rebel against anybody telling us what to do or how we should do it. You know, we have our own way that we have to listen to, right? So ultimately the rebel is so in love with free will. I mean, that is freedom, and free will is at the core of being a rebel. You know, we want to feel utterly and completely free in our lives, and anything that impinges upon that can be really stifling and constricting. And I know this to be the fact. So many of my clients, you know, have that thing. I have that thing. I want to know that I'm choosing the things in my life that I get to choose, and that I'm always in choice. Also, the rebel rejects authority, right? So rebel is like, sorry, you know, I know that you're the guru and you say that you have all the answers, but I like 95% of what you're saying, but that 5% doesn't work for me at all. I'm actually out. Like, that's a critical 5%. You know, this happens all the time too, when we are evolving and we get teachers that are right for us, and then we evolve in another direction, and then suddenly that teacher that was so right for us doesn't feel right for us. You know, we go through teachers a lot, or we just are hungry for more too. Like, that's another thing that can happen. But here's the shadow side of the rebel. You know, we've already talked about pushing against things. That's one thing. It can be exhausting. It can be tiring to be always pushing against things all the time. But the other part of it that's more important to you in your business is that if you have an inner rebel, an unhealed rebel maybe is what we could call it, what you might find that you do is not just reject other people's authority, but reject your own authority. Like, you intend perfectly well to do something that you know is important for your success and for your business, and then like something comes in that makes you check out at the worst moment, or suddenly you decide it's not important, or whatever. Maybe you really love spontaneity, and the idea of having your schedule planned out, you know, feels really constricting to you. And you know, these are all things that happen. They're different bits and ways that we reject our own authority at different levels of business. You know, for some of you, you may identify with the whole, like, I don't want to have to like make a strict schedule, and so I'm not going to try to accept too many clients because I'm afraid that that's going to keep me locked in an office a certain number of hours, right? Like, that might be a thing that you have, and I've had it in the past too. I totally related to that at one point, and now I don't. And there are other ways though, like when you're later parts of business, maybe you want to be so spontaneous that you're not willing to run a program more than one time. And so you're constantly spinning on the hamster wheel, creating new things. Like, there are all kinds of ways, like you might have intended, I'm going to repeat this program, but then you keep finding an excuse to do something different. That's another way you might reject your own authority. And only you can know if you're doing that. So there's another archetype that we work with in business, which is, especially with women in business, is the queen archetype. You know, so the queen is the leader. She wants to create her domain. She wants to inspire others. She wants to have an impact. And she also wants to create sustainability, create a foundation, right? She's practical, but lovingly practical. You know, she's not an authoritarian. But the problem is sometimes when our inner rebel is activated, we turn our inner queen into an inner tyrant. We make her into another one of those voices, like our parents telling us to clean up our room. Can you tell that was probably one of mine? When I wanted to be painting and drawing, right? Or telling us, hey, it's time you go get a job, when all you want to do is spend your summers, you know, hanging out with your friends or making art or doing whatever. Like and of course, these are just really like scratch the surface examples. It can show up in really extreme ways too. Usually more extreme ways. A lot of the people in my community, and I bet many of you could resonate with this, are empaths. You're empathic people, and we get very good at reading things and reading situations, partly because there is a natural inclination there, and partly because of life experience training us to be hyper vigilant. And so all of our senses get really dialed in. And we are super sensitive to anyone thinking we should do or be something that we don't want to. And then we internalize that and at times, and we reject our own authority. So, hey, you know, first of all, like, no shame, don't beat yourself up for it. First of all, that's not going to help. Your inner rebel is not going to be into that at all. No flogging necessary. It's all good. Just like shine some light on it and laugh about it if that is a thing that you realize that you have. You know, I certainly have. I remember this like big moment, this big aha I had one day where I realized I was the worst boss I'd ever had. And I kept using bosses as an excuse to leave corporate environments, you know? Not to say that there wasn't some things sometimes backing that up from time to time, but really, again, this piece of me that was anti-authority would kick in too. It was definitely a part of it. And when I realized I was my own worst boss, I had to do something to change that. Yeah, so, you know, here's some signs that you might be rejecting your own authority. And they're interesting ones. So we often, what we'll do is we'll reject something because of a label that we have put on it. You know, we'll decide something isn't for us because it's part of the status quo. It's not ours. This isn't our information, and we'll check out as something that is actually somehow meant for us, you know, in some way. And of course, when we connect with a label, or we connect with someone else's truth or idea of success, actually really is where it happens most in business. You know, we get this idea that we need to learn a new thing, and we give away our power, we give away our crown to someone else. And we adopt their idea of success and their truth. You never want to do that. I mean, that's where your sacred rebel really helps you. It helps you really know what's your truth and what's not your truth. But if you're just rejecting something because of a label or because of an idea that you came in with that's not necessarily entirely true, then you're actually throwing out the baby with the bathwater, right? So one thing that comes up a lot is this idea of the six-figure success, right? And we're going to actually talk about this in various ways throughout the conference. This comes up in a couple of conversations. But the idea of the six-figure success, right? And of course, like, that is a piece of language that you've probably seen batted around. Maybe roll your eyes about it and get annoyed, right? And of course, yeah, if that's someone else's idea of success and it doesn't match for you, then you get to own your own story of success. But then what if six figures was something you were actually ready to step into, right? Like, maybe you've been making 45 to 50K a year roughly, and you know that if you could make 100K, that would mean you could hire support staff and, you know, hire a book editor for the book you're writing and host a big event to get your work, you know, spread the word about your work or whatever, you know, big goals that require an investment. instead of sitting here feeling like, well, that's not on the table for me, I can't do that, I don't have the money, you know, really think about like, well, what if I did have that six-figure success? Would it allow me to do these things and create the things I want to create? To me, financial resources are all about opening up your creative power. What are the finances there to help you create? And then from that place, if you do recognize like, actually, I resonated with everything that this person said, just not that six-figure part, maybe they are actually the right coach for me because I actually could use doubling my income right now. Then you get clear on the support you need to make it happen, and you get a plan together. And it may make you uncomfortable. You know, it may mean raising your prices or changing how you market your work. There's all kinds of things that could come up. But instead of just deciding based on a label something's not for you, actually just get really clear on the truth of what you need to be bringing into your life and your business. This is just one example. I'm just kind of calling out a specific example I see come up all the time. So here's my story. I'll tell you a little bit about my story. So I've had 20 years of experience in communications, web design, branding, and marketing. And I've worked kind of all over the spectrum there. I've done a lot of the design and content creation. I've done building sites back in the day. I built a lot of sites. And I love helping people, right? I have always loved being helpful. And because I have artist as one of my key archetypes, I'm really interested in concrete manifestations of things that I can touch and feel. I mean, that's why I've created an Oracle deck and the Portland Tarot, which I haven't even spoken about, but maybe I'll tell you about that later. So, but the thing that was happening in my business is I was realizing that that wasn't actually what I was doing with people. You know, making a website was just a little like tip of the iceberg. I was actually supporting people in getting clear about their business plan, you know, getting clear about what programs they were selling, what their prices were going to be, how they were going to describe themselves. People usually come into a moment of needing to step into a bigger way of looking at their work and how they talk about their work when they are ready for a website. And so most people will come into things thinking, I need a website, not realizing that actually you need all the things underneath the website. The website is just part of the puzzle, but it's really just a small part. And so people would come into my container and I would end up helping them get clear on how to market themselves and how to brand themselves. Ultimately, what was happening over time is that I was getting a lot of people that really wanted to be thought leaders. You know, a lot of practitioners and healers ready to step out into thought leadership and write a book and do more speaking. You know, so you start to notice trends in your business, things that are happening under the surface. You know, you have the surface level of what you put your shingle out for, and then spirit's working on you the whole time. Your business is a conduit for your transformation. And the funny thing is that my rebel showed up in this particular way, because really what I was doing was coaching people. I was a business coach and a marketing coach. And I was a visibility coach. I was helping, you know, empathic people that are very sensitive to energy actually try to come out and be more visible. And that's terrifying at certain points. Or maybe they were evolving into another level of visibility that they were uncomfortable with, like they'd gotten comfortable with a certain level, but actually being a thought leader, you know, was a big step forward. And it's really funny because for the longest time, because I'm an artist and my whole thing was, I'm going to help you come up with the stuff. And then we're going to have a concrete result, right? As if transformation isn't concrete. It's massively concrete. Shows up in so many different ways. But I'm going to be real vulnerable with you and tell you, I had some amazing coaches that I respected that came to get work with me, and I believed in them. But I had this weird story about coaching. I was like, and maybe you've heard yourself say this, and maybe you're a coach and you've heard yourself say this, because I know I'm not the only one, and I've heard a lot of coaches say this, which is does the world really need another coach? Have you said that? If you have, if you're willing to say it out loud, like, feel free. Does the world really need another coach? And the funny thing is that was my rebel, and my rebel was kicking up a story about what it means to be a coach. Well, for one, here's the thing. If you're in coaching or you're a coach, you're surrounded by coaches because that's what networking does. When you're in a business and you're networking, you get surrounded by people doing similar things, or, you know, in that kind of zeitgeist of business ownership. And it's gonna just be in your sphere. It's not as pervasive as you think. That's a for one. And for two, who cares what label comes with something? If you're meant to share your gifts in a particular way and your soul and your spirit are calling you toward that, if you're feeling this pull coming from inside you, it's what you want, then don't let a label get in your way. Don't get let some preconceived idea of what something means get in your way of you doing what you're meant to do. Because who cares? If you're doing what you're meant to do and you are having a positive impact on people, that's what matters. And that's the conclusion I came to. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I kept trying to ignore it. I kept trying to be the helper, you know? And maybe some of you can relate to this. Maybe you're a practitioner who's feeling called to write a book and do more public speaking, right? And it's a little weird for you to imagine going from the table or your healing space to this other container. And you're thinking, who am I to do that? Why do we need another book in the world? People do that when they're writing a book. This is a common story. And it's just, this is the shadow side of your rebel. Because your rebel it's really funny. It's a really funny paradox. Your rebel is there to help you see your truth. But also, if your rebel is operating on old wounds and old ideas of authority and me versus them, and you're not actually feeling, you're not seeing things in a sense of unity, consciousness, then it will kick up in a way that will hold you back. That's just the inner rebel, unhealed rebel that can show up. But on the other side of that, and if you're in tarot, you know that every card has two sides. It has this blocked energy and it has its flowing energy. The flowing energy of the rebel is all about honoring your truth. It's all about honoring your truth. So, thank you, Pam. Yep, I've said that. Who, me be a coach? Like, we need another coach. Yeah, totally. So once I tuned into what was true for me, I stopped using these excuses to stand in the way of my own next steps. And here's the thing that was happening under the surface. I had archetype work coming up with all of my clients. You know, archetypes are really powerful for creating a magnetic brand, right? Figuring out what your key core archetypes are in your communications and in your message. But there's this other piece about archetypes that would show up with my clients, which is about owning a specific frequency that was aligned for them, that they needed to step into. And I had similarly had someone initiate me onto an archetype. One of the speakers you're gonna see this week, Liliana Barzola, she at one point hosted this women's circle. It was the ancient women's circle. I may be leaving a word out. She wrote an incredible book about it. It's called Mending the Circle. I hope maybe you should check it out if you are running groups too. But anyways, she ran this group and there were 5 archetypes that were part of the group. And we went around a circle one day and everyone got to pick their archetypes that they thought they were, which is really hard. And my clients have trouble with this too. It's really hard because you identify with a little bit of everything because you're not one thing. But in terms of letting an archetype lead and give you some structure and purpose and focus, that was, you know, what this kind of experience was doing. And this is what I do when I work with people as well. So went around the circle and I couldn't decide. And she knew me well. And she said, "You're the artist, duh." You know? And so it was amazing. After that initiation, I created my Portland Tarot deck. It called something up in me and I was able to really focus on something just because I had an archetype to drive me. And it's not, you know, in that particular case, like it was really obvious. I had been an artist my whole life. I had been a creative person my whole life. All the evidence was there and very visible. But sometimes you're stepping into an archetype that feels a little alien to you. Like maybe other people can see it in you, but you don't see it yet. And it can feel phony to step into that archetype, but really it is part of your truth. So the thing is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that authenticity factor in a moment here, but ultimately for me, in my story, all this archetype work was showing up, and a lot of my clients needed to step into the priestess, actually. That was a big one, you know, having a healed priestess who was able to charge for her work. I call this the dynamic of the queen and the priestess working together. When women would claim their priestess, something would happen that would change everything for them. It would give them a little bit more focus and clarity as they were proceeding in their messaging and sharing their programs. So I couldn't deny it anymore. And I started to write a program for this that I ran earlier in the year. But when I started to write the program, a whole book came through, and I'm on my way to getting that all wrapped up and published. But it was amazing. Like it just came through me. I was suddenly a conduit for all of this information that had been waiting for me to actually give it space and stop fighting it. I don't know if you can relate to that at all. If you have something coming through you right now that's asking you to please stop fighting, just surrender. Surrender to what wants to come through you, because it's something you've chosen. It's already something, it's just backlog choices that you've made on some level that are just really just want to come through. And also, you know, who we become and who we're meant to serve and how we're meant to serve is an evolution of all these choices we've made, because that's what we're here to do, is make those kinds of choices and to evolve through our choices. Now, I'm not going to say that it's not scary to jump into something new. I feel really confident about this, but there was a time when I was in my web business that I was actually going from working for everybody to working with spirit-led businesses and empaths and healers, and owning myself as an intuitive in my work. And that was really scary. You know, it was funny. Like I would give this coaching to my clients to just go for it. It's going to be fine, because I saw that it was fine. And then I would still be scared. And the thing was, I was worried that it would seem unprofessional. I might not seem as legitimate. I don't know if you can relate to anything like that. I was afraid I'd lose clients. I was also actually afraid that I would insult or, you know, turn off the clients I had that wouldn't necessarily identify with that whole thing. And then they would think, oh, great, I got to go find someone new. And I didn't want to let them down. I felt responsible. There are all kinds of reasons we can kick up. So I'm just saying, if you're scared, that's normal. And it does work out. It's really about you expanding your own new normal and what you're comfortable with. Other people don't matter as much as you think that they do in that way. So that's my little, you know, bit of advice to you based on my own personal experience. So around authenticity, there's authenticity that calls us toward truth, and then there's false authenticity. I call them red herrings of authenticity. And usually they come up as, I don't want to be that. You know, you see something in your Facebook feed, someone's just like going to town, they're just shining their light, they got all the new pictures taken, they're messaging regularly, they're sending you an email every day or every other day, and you're all annoyed. You're like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. But you might want to be that. There might be something in you that wants to be that. You know, sometimes this authenticity thing can be something in us that's rebelling against what we need to bring in next, you know? So, and then, you know, there's this kind of like, we're afraid of getting caught up in someone else's glamour too, you know? So a glamour from a magical perspective is just this, it's kind of a surface level, just magnetism and energy that we know is actually not the truth. Like underneath that, there's something's off, something major is off. It's not in integrity, right? It's not integrated. There's this reality and there's the real reality, and they are not meshing. And that's when you're an empath and intuitive, you can be very sensitive to those kinds of things for sure. And then there's an archetypal energy that amplifies a deeper truth. So the reason I want to talk about The difference between a glamour and archetypal energy is that sometimes we can confuse one for the other. And if we're trying to step into a new archetype for ourselves, let's say, you know, maybe you're used to being a ham around your friends. You're always funny and center of attention at the party. But it's time for you to think about doing public speaking, and you just can't imagine that. You need to like decide that you have a performer archetype in your grid, right? And that terrifies you. You're like, no, I don't think so. That isn't me. And then all of a sudden, you're very annoyed by all the performer types in your world, right? That's how it can show up, is you rejecting them or thinking, or just going, that's not for me. That's just not for me. But, and I should say, from that place, if you were told to step into your performer archetype, you might think of it as wearing a mask. This isn't real. This isn't me. This feels so fake. I don't want to do this, right? And there's a mask, and then there's the sacred mask. You know, when we think about masks in cultures that do have ritual and celebration using masks, you know, they are calling in some kind of archetypal energy or mythical energy into a place of ceremony, into the community. And a sacred mask is where you model a frequency, a specific frequency for others, maybe as a leader, or maybe it's something you're building up in yourself. Usually that's the case. You're building up something that's already true for you. It's already in you. You just may not fully recognize it yet. And this is something that shows up when we really admire celebrities. You know, I'm a big David Bowie fan, and once you're in my community, you just probably will hear more than you want to about David Bowie, unless you love David Bowie. But, you know, I'm a big David Bowie fan, and I'm a big Amanda Palmer fan too. And I had this situation come up where something happened in her family that hurt my feelings, and I was very upset. And it was funny, I felt discouraged, and my friend said to me something that I would have said to someone else, which is, you don't need to worry about her. The reason, and she's lovely, by the way, don't get me wrong. This was just something that I got triggered. And he said, you don't need to worry about that. She's already inside of you. You are already what all these things that you love about her, you know, you put her on this pedestal, all those things are already inside of you. And that's exactly what archetypes are about. We really are I'm drawn to David Bowie. It doesn't mean that I'm David Bowie, but there are things in David Bowie that I'm drawn to that are inside of me. And the same for all of his fans. That's why he is the king of misfits himself, right? So all of us misfits were like, hey, there's something of me inside of you. You're calling that forward. Thank you. So that's the sacred mask, where you're actually recognize there's something inside of you that you're going to build upon, that you're going to amplify the frequency. And I just don't want you to use authenticity as an excuse not to allow what's next for you to come through. And just remember that true authenticity vibrates. And it's not just it's not like 1 + 1 = 2. You know, you can be playing with your identity and still be authentic. David Bowie is a great example of that. He had all these personas, but do we ever think of him as not being authentic? Not really. At least most people don't. So here's the flip side of the rebel, and I touched on this earlier. It's the A student, right? So we want to be independent, but we also want to look perfect. And the problem is that people don't really resonate with perfection. And the thing is that, you know, when we want to be in control and we want everything to be perfect, you can be a rebel and still want to do all of that. What we then don't have permission to do is experiment and to play with new archetypes for ourselves and to play with a new way of being. So here's really the archetype underneath the rebel. The real archetype is the trickster. The trickster is deeply woven into the archetype of the sacred rebel. So we're talking about like Loki, Coyote, Grandmother Spider. There's so many different trickster gods in different pantheons or mythologies. So the trickster comes into the story when you've gotten too obsessed with control and perfection, and they ruin your perfect picture for your own good, so you can shake it up, so you can change, you can transform. The trickster is the sacred mask that lets you transform into who you're really meant to be, and is a deep source of power. And you can get frustrated when the trickster shows up in your life, or you can surrender to it and go with the flow and see what it has to teach you. And so that brings us to owning your weird and your woo. So your weird or your woo, or maybe you have both, are part of the magic and the unique story that makes you interesting and marketable. It may be hard to believe that, especially when we have a witch wound. You know, I could go into that in more depth, but I'm not going to here. But this idea of, you know, maybe we feel like we had a past life experience where we were literally burned at the stake for being who we were. Or maybe we just have a story mock-up of that in our youth in this current lifetime, right? So the thing is that we live in a big world and we are so connected through the internet. Like all of you are here from all over the world. And in this large world, we have so much more opportunity to make really refined choices in our lives. And we can find the people that we really need to work with. So people are out there looking for that perfect person that has the perfect meshing of all the cross sections of the things that they really care about and are interested in, that they want to work with. They're looking for someone to meet their needs, and they're just looking for someone to meet their desires too, to add a little more fun to certain experience or a different way of doing it. We're all on the lookout for that. And you are that perfect match for someone, but you have to let them know who you really are for them to see you as a perfect match. It's kind of like if someone, you know, goes out on dates, they're trying to find a partner and they're on Match.com, they're going out on dates and they put all this stuff that's not really them in their profile and they dress in a way they don't normally dress. And then they get married to this person that they met and they start being themselves suddenly. That other person's going to go, you're not what I wanted when I married you. And you're going to think, if you keep doing that, you're just going to keep thinking, well, I'm not, no one ever wants me to be me. But you got to start out by being you. You got to start out by being you to get the right fit people. And then you're going to have an amazing time because people are getting exactly what they came in to get. There are actually people who want you for what you do, you know? And here's the thing, like, it takes some time to trust that this is true. I have a few parts of me. So here's the thing. I'm a coach. I have all this marketing and communications background, right? Very practical stuff. And I've created a tarot deck. I've created an oracle deck that has sold thousands of copies. Well, actually, that's not true. It's sold hundreds of copies. Sorry, almost 1,000 copies. I'm future projecting. Okay, so you're going to meet my alter ego later this week, Lady Doom, who you're just going to be like, that's you? She won't admit that it's me, though, so don't talk to her about it. She doesn't admit that I exist at all, except for in antagonistic terms. But, you know, she's not a very nice person, but she has a lot to teach. So you're going to meet her. I have an evil alter ego in my business, right? Like, who does that? But you can find your own way to combine all of these things, you know? So you might have your own version of that. For me, like, I found a way to make this work. It's weird. It works. My clients actually love my evil alter ego. They crack up when they see me do videos as my evil alter ego, Lady Do, okay? You might have something else that's not that crazy, right? So for you, maybe you do Reiki, or you do massage, you know, so it seems pretty normal, and you never tell your clients that you have two energy beings in the room helping. There's Bob and there's Fran, and Bob is an elf and Fran is an angelic being, and they're both helping you with your work. I mean, I'm making something up, but seriously, like, this is real for people. I'm not actually making fun of something that I may not have heard that specific story, but I've heard some version of that story. And is it so dangerous to admit that that is part of what you do? Maybe someone's looking for that person and they don't know it. And maybe you're playing it safe and you're not telling people until you get to know them. And then you're like, okay, you're cool. I can tell you about this because you'll be okay with it. I can tell you that as I'm working on you, I'm downloading all these insights and channeling all this stuff for you. You know, now maybe you live in a place where that doesn't feel so safe, and that, I get that, right? There might be a time and a place for certain things. Or maybe you need to move somewhere where you can be yourself. I don't know. That was my choice. Maybe you do business consultations like I've done with tarot cards and using pendulums, you know. The clients I have love that, and I'm open about it. And that lets me actually bring more of myself to the table. I have more fun, they have more fun, and we get more insight. We get the benefit of using the tool. Maybe you just have a modality and it's time for you to admit that you're way more than your modality. But you being a part of the equation is what's really important. And maybe you are bringing something special to the table you're not claiming. So the rebel, coming back to the rebel again, it wants you to have a radical sense of freedom, especially to be yourself. And I want to tell you that even though we listen to our higher selves for insight and information, again, this is insight and information based on choices we've already made. It's not just some map that if we could just do the right things and follow that map, we would forever be set, right? It's about creating ourselves. We are here to create ourselves. And you could have 20 different ways to create the same outcome. And part of the fun is just deciding what you're going to choose in this moment. And archetypes are a big part of that self-creation and tapping into that. So creating yourself is first and foremost the point of things, and then you serve others from that place. And that's what your Sacred Rebel is here to help you do. So the Sacred Rebel, you know, in review, it helps you plant a flag for what's yours. It helps you listen to what you've put in your vortex next. So again, your previous choosing and what's aligned with what you want to do now. What are you ready to receive next? Not the big picture, not the whole enchilada, like what's next? And there are no right answers, and my A+ students, you're not being tested. And just remember that it's not pushing against, but shining as a lighthouse and letting your people find you, the right people, and being strong in who you are and what you offer. Because evolution is part of the revolution, and self-growth and realization are the whole thing. It's really what it's all about. And finally, just a little note, you have to be willing to polarize people, because you aren't for everyone and you don't need to be. You need to stop trying to please people and stop trying to be likable or be liked, you know, or just do things for the sake of being liked. And my Lady Dune alter ego will say more on that later this week, because this is messing with your success. This is messing with you achieving the things that you want to achieve. Because the right people are going to be magnetized to you, especially magnetized to that weird or woo thing that you do. So if you're really excited about this idea and you're not sure what archetype that you're ready to step into, this is my free gift that I'm offering. So I can't do more than 3 of these sessions, but I have 3 free 1-hour archetypal essence sessions that I'm giving away. And I'm going to pick 3 people who are really aligned for it. I've got a form that you can fill out to apply. And when you fill out the application, I will review every single one. And I'm going to pick the 3 most aligned people and connect with you. And I'll let you know if you're picked or not. And here's the thing, the value of getting a key archetype, again, like I said before, it helps you really define what you're stepping into next and own it in a new way. And I know for so many of the people I've worked with, it's made all the difference. Maybe you need to bring more of your queen in, or maybe your queen needs to be in one part of your business and your healer in another part of your business. Maybe you have your own archetype. Maybe you're an innovator, or you might need to bring in more of the performer. Maybe that terrifies you. Or maybe you just need to own your priestess more and be willing to sustain her and let her shine more. Whatever it is for you, I know that, like I said, the first time I had an archetype kind of assigned to me, it did unlock a whole new level of creative power for me. So I'm going to go ahead really quickly and I'm going to paste this over into the chat box here. All right, I just pasted the link for you live people. And for those of you who are watching the replay, or if you're coming back to this later, this link, free gift link, is going to be below the video where you can get there from the event schedule. So you'll see a link to the talk, and then you can click the free gift there to apply. We've got all week to apply, but you know, just make sure you do it if you're intending on doing it. And I will pick those 3 people. And I'm really excited to read your applications and see what you have to say. So, you know, the thing is that while I've always been kind of the queen of the misfits, and I my whole life, I just had to be myself. Like there was just no option. Even if I was uncomfortable, I think that's the thing that's different from when I was younger. I'm more comfortable being true to myself. And that is what allows me to be as visible as I am and to be as clear on my message as I am. And it took frequency tools to get me here to this level of comfort. And it took archetypal upgrades. I didn't just stick with artists. There were other archetypes that I embodied as I went over time. And I had to intentionally, you know, sometimes I got coaching or joined a mastermind, step into that next level me, right? I had to initiate myself. I did it through choosing to step into new containers that would help me initiate myself into my next level. And, you know, I had to get to the point where I realized I did have a clear core message and a readiness to step up as a thought leader. Sometimes I call this thoughtful leader, because some of my people like that thought leader thing feels really guru, but you are all very thoughtful people and you have things to share that you want to share with the world, right? I think that being a thoughtful leader actually feels like an even more embodied way to say that. And for me, archetypal mastery was key. So please sign up for that if you're interested. Again, the link is in the chat for live, and it's going to be in the button below the video on those replays. All right. Well, thank you for that. So we're going to do a little Q&A, but in a minute. But just really quickly, be sure to join the Facebook group if you haven't and you want to be a part of the conversation, Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries. And this talk is going to be on the site in another hour. It's going to just take me a minute to download it and upload it to YouTube. And then we have other speakers today that are incredible that you can go watch their recordings. Abiola Abrams, Jocelyn Mercado, Dr. Carol Parker Walsh, and Anya Hankin. And then tomorrow's live speaker is Adrienne Gunn, and she's going to talk to us about how to heal yourself using movies and TV, which I think is super fun, and you're going to love that talk. So yeah, let's launch into the Q&A. Oh, thank you for putting that in there. Soul Leaders and Visible Visionaries. Yes, yes. So, all right, let's see if I can do this. This will be my first time actually doing a Q&A. I think for the Q&A, there is a little button at the bottom, I believe, that says Q&A. And if you have a question, you can post it there, or you can post it in the chat box. And I think I can upgrade someone to panelist if you want to share video and talk. We can get you on live. So I think you can also raise your hand if you have a question. So go ahead, let me know if you have any issues doing this. But I am open for questions and answers. In the meantime, I'll just scan through the chat here and see if I missed anything. I think there were a couple of things. Oh, Pam says she's gonna get a Lady Doom tattoo. You threatened to do that one time, and I would, if you actually do that, I'm gonna crack up so much. Let's see what we got, new messages, Pam. Okay, yeah. Control. Oh yeah, Deb says it's all about control. We need to get out of our own way. This is my biggest issue. Yeah. Being an A+ student, man, doesn't always, sometimes being an A+ student is great because we're very detail oriented, and control is an issue. 11/11 blessings, yay. That's so great, you're right, it is 11/11. Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for being a part of this. I'll stay here for just a moment longer in case someone's working up the courage to ask a question or contribute. If you just have something you want to say, you know, feel free to raise your hand. But if we don't have any questions, we'll wrap up here soon. It's been such a pleasure to have you all here. Let me know also what resonated with you today. Thoughts about friendships and relationships being affected as your vibe changes with leaning into your power. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pam, I'll quickly address that. And I see that Sarah has a question here too. So that's a big one. You know, friendships and relationships will change as you start stepping into more of who you are. There are just some people that are not going to be okay with the you that you're becoming, right? They're going to have a reaction to it. And, you know, something that can happen in that situation is when you're getting really focused on a goal that you want to achieve, you know, you want to, you're doing something big, and people have various reactions to that, and it can come up as all kinds of stories against you, and it can throw you off course. And ultimately, you know, the relationships that are really meant for you at a particular time in your life are going to be the ones that make you feel uplifted, that make you feel that yummy vibration of like, I'm really being honored and heard here. And you don't really need to listen to the others. And you might, you know, it's not really about, and I actually, one talk this week is going to really go deeper into this, Pam. I highly recommend Liliana's talk. It might be tomorrow, I think, that's coming out. But about, you know, letting go of people as you embrace more for, you know, in this case, more money, but it's really just embracing that next level, knowing who you need to keep in your circle. You know, you don't have to break up with people necessarily, but you do need to be intentional about who uplifts you in the new person that you're becoming, and not personalize their story about you, because you get to choose who you want to be. No one else gets to define that. It is a choice. And I think it's really important that we just keep doing whatever we need to do to nourish and love ourselves, to stay on course, find associations with the people that are going to help build up that new version of you as you're stepping into that. So hopefully that is helpful. So I see Anya had a question, healing work in secret. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna just I noticed a couple people raised their hands over in the Q&A box. So I'm gonna go ahead and I have a hard time. So Sarah Stacy says, I have a hard time stepping into my full power because my passion is in such taboo topics. So Sarah, yes, Sarah, there will be someone asked, I think Sarah, if there will be a replay. There will be. It'll be posted on the site in the next hour. So Sarah Stacy, would you, I'm gonna just go ahead and see if we can get you live if you want to jump on over. I think I can. I may have asked you if you want to go live, but I don't know if you get it pinged or not. So if you get pinged and you want to go live, feel free to go ahead. Okay. Did you get an invitation, Sarah? Let me see if I can find you down here. I'm going to figure this out. Hold on a second, Sarah. All right, I'm going to allow you to talk. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for hopping on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You have such a great question. You're saying, do you want to talk a little bit more about it, or is it pretty much cut and dried? So you're saying you're having a hard time stepping in your full power because your passion is in such taboo subjects.
Yeah. So a lot of my sort of experiences and my teachings and my learnings and my gifts is kind of relating in intimacy, but also really exploring some more taboo subjects like BDSM and the relationship of power play and all of these types of things. And I'm kind of struggling to really step out as someone who's speaking about these types of things in a really open, confident way. Like I'll go and do a podcast, and that's cool, but kind of sharing it on my own platform feels scary because it's something that I don't speak to my family about, you know.
Sure. So it's like you're not just out for the world, but you're out for your family, which is actually harder.
Yeah.
I mean, it usually is for most people, and then this can apply to all kinds of things. It's the family is the hardest part of it, you know. Yeah, I totally get that. You know what? When I tune in, for you, it's probably going to be a process of putting a little more out there at a time and expanding your comfort level with it, because a lot of stepping out and more visibility for anything, but especially things that are more taboo or seen as taboo or weird, part of it is a frequency thing that you're working on. So you are upgrading your frequency to handle more of that attention. You're getting to it's funny because all of this change that we go through into greater visibility, part of it is actually working with our nervous system to bring in more of that, to be able to have more eyes on us, to be able to keep our energetic boundaries really clean, and to be able to have a kind of a second sense of what's theirs and what's mine. What should I take? What's my responsibility? What's not? And that's kind of, it's almost literally a muscle you build, or at the very least, it's like building your nervous system up to handle it. And so giving yourself permission to go out into that uncomfortable territory bit by bit and let your nervous system adjust, I think would be a really important part of it. And something else that someone has, I think Dill talks about this in our talk, Dill Ward, but this idea that you actually can just tell your family, like, I love you, I am unfriending you on Facebook, you know, like, or, you know, just be really like, I love you and I want you in my life. You know, here's the Instagram account you get to talk to me through. And this is just family and friends, but over here, like, I don't want you on there because I need to be able to feel free to be myself, you know?
Yeah.
That might be
definitely
hard to do, but you know, it's kind of a loving thing to do too. It's like, I know that you're not going to be okay with this, and I really want to be myself. So
yeah, that's really great advice. And it's interesting that you say about the central nervous system, because I've had a lot of things go on with my central nervous system over the last few years, and it's kind of been, it's almost like a ping pong effect. And I feel that it's almost like I feel like I'm having problems because I'm not talking about it in some ways. And I feel that by sharing more, that it would strengthen and it would feel more balanced. So it's almost like my kundalini is just going, I want to come out, I want to you know, I want to talk, but actually it's almost like I'm suppressing it, which is making it worse.
Yeah, I totally get that. That can happen too. Absolutely. Your nervous system will rebel if you're not speaking more of your truth. I think that where we get overwhelmed is we think we have to do everything at one time, you know, and maybe it's about figuring out what's the next piece that you feel like you can come out with, you know, that's you exercising that boundary a little bit more. Or maybe you do need to do something dramatic, you know, just do a new photo shoot, right? Where you just,
I love a photo shoot. I said I love a photo shoot. I was actually planning one. I've just written a really amazing piece, and I think I might just
oh, that's awesome. Yeah, sometimes a new set of photos can be a great way of like saying, here I am
rebirth,
in this new paradigm, you know, take me. But, you know, I just want to say, honor you for your courage to do this work. It is so needed, as Pam was saying, and honoring that side of ourselves. And the thing is, the other thing that I'm tuning into here, like kind of the last piece, is this is something that happens for all of us when we're stepping into a new territory that feels really kind of scary. It feels like we are really planting our flag very strongly for this thing that people aren't going to be cool with. And I find that that's not generally as true as we think it is. And whenever we enter into kind of like an us versus them energy and not come into something from unity, which is this thing is coming through you because it is present in others and it needs that support. Like that's what's calling you toward it. But when we get down to actually coming out, so to speak, for that thing, we can do it from a separation place versus a unity place. The unity place calls us into it, but we forget our unity when we're actually coming out for that thing. And just remember that, you know, for one, the people that need to see it are going to see it. And a lot of other people, most of them are going to tune out. You know, you might get some feedback, and we're always afraid in these situations we're going to get negative feedback, and that can happen. And you have to determine that you're going to really tune into all the positive feedback, which is probably 99% of what you're going to get, you know. But it is a journey, and I think just honoring that your body in this process, which I'm guessing that you're really actually very good at, you know. Just keep making it a part of the conversation as you step. Every time you do something that feels really scary and fries your system a bit, maybe your adrenals get tapped, you know, make sure you schedule a massage the next day or whatever it is that you would do to support that.
Yeah, definitely. That's great advice. Thank you. And it's just kind of jumping on the call tonight. It's just really given me a little bit of a realization and a, kind of, you know, permission in a sense, just seeing other people sort of stepping into their power. It's really helped me to,
Thank you,
have
Sarah.
permission to do it, to just do it.
Yeah, you got this. Just do it. Just do it. It's going to be awesome. You know, what you're going to look back like 5 years from now, I'm so thankful to you now for taking the leap, and just seeing all the people you will have helped and how you will have helped them open new doors, like to who they are meant to be and how they're meant to express themselves sexually and otherwise in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
I think it's amazing. Yeah, you are so welcome. Thank you for hopping on the call. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see if I can, how do I disconnect you now? Let's see, done. Is that how we do this? No. All right. Sorry, I'm getting the hang of this. Give me a second here. There we go. Okay. Thank you so much, Stacy, or Sarah, sorry, not Stacy, Sarah. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Okay, who else did we have here? All right, we've got some questions here in the chat box. I'm gonna go revisit here. So, what do you feel, what if you feel, Joanna asks, what if you feel that you must do your healing work in secret? Yeah. Joanna, let me know if you want to hop on as well, but otherwise I'll just answer that question. There are situations where it might be appropriate for you to keep it a secret. You know, I've heard of like nurse practitioners. You're working in a medical office, and that's like one really kind of standard example. Maybe, you know, you're working in a medical office, and maybe there is some kind of healing component, energy work that you're doing, you know, or clearing technique you have that you utilize kind of on the fly, you know. So ultimately, like, what's most important in any situation is that we are honoring ourselves fully, and we are really stepping into our power for ourselves. So maybe you are in a situation where you're in an area where you actually do feel like it would be dangerous for you to come out and say what you do actually do, right? And I'm not going to deny that there aren't situations where that does happen. You know, it would, again, like the witch wound doesn't come from nowhere. Pardon me, getting a little froggy throat. You know, the witch wound doesn't come from nowhere, and it's not like there aren't situations where we might be in a place where we can't really fully come out for what we're really doing. And, you know, what's really ultimately important is, you know, you're honoring yourself in some way. And this might be a time to ask a question if there's somewhere else to go where you can do that work. Or maybe you're feeling called to stay where you're at because you're bringing in that frequency into the place you're living in. So I grew up in the South, and it's changed a lot since I grew up there. And there were ways that I could really be open about who I was and what I did. And there were things that I probably wouldn't have talked about growing up, because it wasn't it wasn't so much that it was dangerous, really. It was more a matter of me not wanting to deal with all that energy being thrown at me. Like, it wasn't worth it. I was secure in myself enough. I knew who I was. I didn't need to kind of blast it out. And in that case, you know, if you're marketing your business, you have to find clever ways to kind of call in your people without saying it out loud, you know? So that might require a little more creativity on your part. Like, get really clear about your client avatar. The people that are in your area who are drawn to what you do, are there code names for things, you know, that you can rely on for your particular industry, or for those people? Can you just really tune into who they are as people and what, you know, and usually that's inside of you. Like, you can think about what would have resonated for you in the situation or the thing that you really want to offer. And then you can, in that case, like, design a client intake that will let you get really clear on whether or not this is someone you would talk to about the deeper part of what you do. Or maybe this is, you know, if you're dealing with something where it's actually the entirety of what you do, it's not like you're a massage therapist, but you also could do this if that person would let you, or you're a coach, but you could also do this if the person was open. You know, if it's really like you're a tarot reader and people don't like tarot readers in your area, I don't know, I'm just making something up. You know, so you just have to, you know, I don't know, I am always like, if someone tells me I can't do something, I'm going to find a way around that. So find your people online, try to work with people remotely if you can, you know, draw a client base for that reason. there could be a number of other reasons that I'm not covering here that could be why you don't feel like you can do what you do in the open, and that, you know, could be a lengthy topic. But, you know, my advice to you is, first of all, like, don't ever decide you can't do something. Just be curious about how you can get out there. You know, maybe you do it in a subversive way, maybe it's about moving somewhere else, you know, and just honoring your call to go to a new place where you can practice your gifts confidently. It could be a number of different answers to that question. But I appreciate you asking it, because I think this is going to be something that comes up for a lot of people from a lot of different angles. You know, it doesn't just happen in one specific way. So thank you for asking, Joanna. So, yeah, so Anya, what was the first step to get into finding out about my four dominant, I think you're saying 4 dominant archetypes. Well, I will be offering some opportunities to explore that further. And I could talk for hours on that. But, you know, archetypes are all around us, right? You might be attracted to certain mythological figures or certain gods and goddesses, certain people. You know, really, like, think about what attracts you right now and why you're drawn to that, and explore the meaning and the nuance and the texture underneath all of that. You know, I work with archetypes that are more umbrella archetypes. They don't have a specific face, so to speak, right? They're not associated with a character, mythology, or a pantheon. But, you know, all of the archetypes I talk about are in various ways present in those pantheons. And so just think about what you are feeling called toward. That's one thing that you can do, and see what information unlocks for you there. You know, why are you really attracted to a certain musician or artist? What is it about them? There's something in that that's for you and is about who you are stepping into as well. Oh, I actually saw Pam's thing. You said that so earlier we were talking about friends disconnecting. You said a friend broke up with you yesterday because of your diminished availability. Yeah, well, you know what? It's sometimes, I want to speak directly to that. Sometimes people cut us out because they're not comfortable with how big you're getting. You know, they're not comfortable. They're like judging themselves against you, and that's not your job to manage. And it can look like them saying, you're not available for me, right? And the thing is, that's just probably one part of it. And it's not to say that we don't try to make time for people that we really care about, but a good friend is going to understand if you're going through a period where you really need to focus on something and build something for yourself, which I know for you, Pam, you are doing. And it's not like you have been doing this for the last 20 years, you know, and this is just your MO. It's like, it's just been a period of time. And if someone can't support you through that, then they're probably not the right friend for you. There's probably something else going on there. And it's not even about you, really, right? And again, like, you shining brighter should never be someone's excuse for disconnecting. And they might, but they may give you a different excuse. And underneath the surface, that's kind of what's going on. It's no shame to them. We all have our things. And you know, when the agreement of a relationship changes, when the contract is the kind of power dynamic and energy shifts, when we are changing, people aren't always comfortable with that. And it brings stuff up for them. And it's not your job to manage that for them. They need to figure it out on their own. So that's what I would say about that. So I don't know why your name is getting cut off, but I think it's Marie saying, the sacred rebel is really showing up in astrology right now. Uranus is the revolutionary, and it's in Taurus now. Venus, the divine feminine, rules Taurus. There's a paradigm shift happening about embodying this work. So thank you for sharing the sacred rebel. Perfect timing. As above, so below. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so awesome. So yeah, the nervous system transformations are enormous for empaths. I think that's Melissa saying that. And Joanna, I am so happy to have helped for you to share your story and for you to have gotten something out of this. I'm glad you got a new way of looking at it from here. Suzanne says, I'm a witch and I run 3 different companies that use my skills, but in secret. How do you find out your true archetype so you can focus your energy better? As I think I am overstretching myself over my 3 companies. Yes, absolutely, you are probably overstretching yourself. And your key archetype there might be a clue in some core component that's common to all three of those companies. Maybe you are a witch, but maybe there's something about how you do your work that you really need to hone in on. Really tune into what you're excited about right now. What is, let's say you have three companies and one of them is selling a product, right? And that product is, is something you were excited about, but you kind of feel like you have to keep carrying it. Like if you're not as jazzed, you're probably not going to make much money off of it anyways. And then you're going to end up, in this place where you don't have enough energy and time to give the things you are more excited about. So, that's one way to think about that. Actually, would you like to talk about that live, Suzanne? Let me know, because I would love to get more information about your situation. Pam, yeah, you said you realize it reflects your own stuff. It just felt hard. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard letting go of relationships. It just feels icky to feel judged and to be told that we're not being a good friend or we're not doing good enough. It just never feels good. You just need to go love up on yourself and go talk to a couple of close friends who can really feed you and remind you how amazing you are. You're terrified. You should be sure. I'm happy to address your question, but I would love for you to come on live if you're open. Okay, I'm gonna do it, and you can just say no at the last minute. All right, Suzanne, how are you feeling it? Hello, are you here?
Hello, yes.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you for coming on live. Don't be terrified. Everyone, we're all friends here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, do you want to tell me a little bit more about your companies if you're open to it?
Yes, so I've been running a property management company for 17 years with my husband.
Okay.
He's a horticulturist, so it was based on gardening, but we've expanded. And I run an estate agency as well, which specializes in particular properties. I'm in France, so I'm looking for second homes, for holiday homes for people. And my third company is selling a product, which I think you got it spot on. I'm not in love with as much. I love the product, but I'm not in love as much as I was with it. So, yeah, you got that one.
That's funny. I didn't expect to get it so spot on. That's awesome. So you have these three companies, and your witch. Is that something that you're wanting to bring into your work more?
Well, the thing is that I get my highs from making people happy.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I find I've always ended up in either customer service or being like an operations manager, so I'm helping staff. So I've always been the go-to person. And yeah, being a witch is just who I am.
Just who you are, right?
Yeah, I joined a coven when I was 17 because I left home and I used to read tarot for cigarettes and food because I didn't want money for it.
Yeah.
And that's how I got by, being on a 17-year-old child making her way through life.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I also ran away from home at 17, but I didn't do something that cool. I wish I had done that. That sounds like so much. Also craziness, right? Probably went through a lot that you didn't want to go through. But also you have stories to tell, right?
Yeah, so the book is planned when I retire in 5 years.
Why 5 years? I don't know. I feel like you could write it now. That's always my advice. Write the book now. It'll just be the first one. You got to write more books too, I'm sure.
Do you know, the problem is there's just not enough hours in the day. Yeah. I've got 4 kids, 2 grandkids, 3 companies. It's like, where the hell do I find 5 minutes? And,
totally.
And that's my problem.
Well, which of the businesses do you enjoy the most?
I think actually probably the estate agency, and that's the one I earn the least on.
Okay. Yeah. I had a feeling that was probably the one. So you don't have as much ownership in that one. So you maybe don't have like 100% say over how that unfolds.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I'm under a large company umbrella. So I suppose I'm not in 100% control, which is, yeah, considering I'm a control freak, that's probably a big yeah.
I know. Join the club, right? I have a feeling that a lot of us can resonate with that. Yeah, you know, it just feels like focusing in would be really good for you, because I feel like you're meant to write this book and you need to make the time for that to come through. And, you know, I'm always thinking, like, how can you do something like, you know, have an estate agency that brings more of the woo into it in some way, you know, more, or at least your style and personality, a way of connecting with people that's unique to how you operate in the world. Like, there are people who want that and love that. And I'm always curious about that. Like, how can you take something into a new direction where you get to be even more of yourself, you know, in the context of something that seems more traditional or mainstream that you actually really love doing. And it might, you know, there's so many ways you could go about doing that. But just thinking about how you can turn one thing into more of what you want, you know, so that you don't have to do all three. That would be my first instinct, but I'm guessing that the property management business is probably where you get a lot of your income too.
It is. It's our primary company. I mean, I've tried to step back as much as I can, but you know, these men, yeah.
So, you know, there might be a few different solutions. Like, you may need to call in a really radical level of support, you know, like really like put your feelers out there for like, okay, universe, show me what I need, how I can get an amazing person who can take over for me more. And I know I can trust that the company is being run the way I want it to, you know. You know, we do tend to, when we are kind of visionary people who are also very detail oriented, we tend to think of ourselves as indispensable, and that also comes with the helper mock-up, you know, this sense of being indispensable. It's kind of a shadow side of being a helper. One of those is a shadow archetype I call the minion, right? Well, there's a couple. There's like the fairy godmother too. I think actually that's more like a fairy godmother mock-up, is where we're like, I'm indispensable. I'm a unicorn. There's no one like me, you know, who can do what I can do. And the truth is that there's always someone who can take over for us, especially if our passion isn't in it anymore. You know, it's great for us to be doing it if we're feeling really passionate and excited about it still. But if it's draining us in any way, then we have to be curious about how we can be replaced. You know, that's where I usually go to with that kind of thing. Does that resonate for you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like, I don't know, I just got the sense that there's another business brewing for you under the surface. That's kind of your is your next step maybe, but it maybe needs time to come bubble through. But yeah, if you can let go of the product, I would suggest probably doing that if you can, or at least phasing it out and getting more time in your schedule. Because if you've been thinking about writing a book, you know, in 3 years, you're going to say it's 5 years from now again, right? That's just what we all do. I'm speaking from experience. So, you know, it's like, I think that the books usually want to come through in the moment. Like, when we have the idea, they're ready to start coming through. And it might just be a 30-minute a day kind of thing. But if you don't have 30 minutes a day to really explore that side of yourself, then it's time to at least start making that time, because then in a couple of years you could start it and get on that process. Because you sound like you've had an incredible life, and I would love to read your book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Was that helpful for you? Did you get a kind of an answer to your question? I know that it's kind of complex, right?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. It's been really helpful. And yeah, the clarity, with the third business, that's, definitely let that go. And just kick my husband up the arse. Apologies for the language.
No, don't be. That's what we do here. This is the Sacred Rebel Summit. We have language.
I was so glad you mentioned the F-bombs earlier on.
Oh,
because,
fucking A.
Like
We have the F-bombs. Yeah, thank you for sharing and being brave and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it, and what your situation, because I know that other people are going to get a lot of value out of that.
Oh, thank you. It's so kind. And as I say, thank you for your time. I It's very, very much appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you. Have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. There we go. Okay. Okay, my loves, I think that we are wrapping up. I think we answered all the questions. Yay. All right. Thank you so much, all of you for joining. I know some of you had to duck out, but we still have quite a lovely crew here. I appreciate your questions and your comments and being engaged. It means so much to me, and this has been so much fun sharing this time with you. Really grateful. I'm excited for you to get the rest of the amazing talks that we're going to deliver over this week and connect with you again tomorrow morning when I talk with Adrienne Gunn live. And you know, when you ask questions, it's always nice to be able to ground the information in actual examples. So I hope some of you will join us tomorrow and ask Adrienne some great questions so that she can bring her goodness to you and support you. Yay, thank you so much, Yetta, for saying that, and we are looking forward to giving you more goodness. Thank you all. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day, and come over to the group. Let me know what really vibed for you in this talk and whatever other talks that you watch today. I would love to hear from you. All right, my loves, mwah. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Toodaloo. Let's see if I can do this right.